following this for a while now.
Few years.
A few years, yeah. So I wonder if you'd explain, I suppose, to the audience why you've been so interested in what's going on there, and a bit of background to, I suppose, why do the left follow what's going on there?
Well, I mean, this is one of the most exciting political experiments, really, since the anarchists in Spain in the 1930s. This is one of the few occasions when people have actually had a extensive stretch of territory in which to try to see if libertarian socialist ideas can really be put into practice and actually work on the ground, with a lot of really startling success, to be honest. I first found out about the revolution in Rojava when people there contacted me. And, at first I think everyone reacted with a certain degree of incredulity. I mean, is this really true? Could this be happening? Could all of this been happening for all these years and I'd never heard about it? But, the more I learned, the more I was really struck by how profound an historical experiment it really was.
In what way? So I mean,
Well,
what does that mean?
I mean, what we're talking about is really something that started within the PKK, which is the guerrilla movement, and it's a larger political movement within Turkey, which is originally a separate Marxist-Leninist separatist movement. Over time, it has evolved, and often this is attributed almost exclusively to the personality of one person, the head of the PKK, Abdullah Öcalan, although in fact a lot of what happened within the PKK was the result of internal struggle, especially women's struggle within the organization itself. What Öcalan has to be to his credit is that he was open to it, which for the most part these sort of old patriarchal Marxist-Leninist types are not. And gradually over time, PKK transformed from a relatively traditional national liberation struggle was pushing for a separate Kurdish state, to something really different. A group whose major planks are social ecology, a lot of it inspired by Murray Bookchin. Although they have their own version of democratic confederalism that they've developed, partly based on their own experience, partly on Kurdish traditions, and partly based on anarchist theory. So you have social ecology, direct democracy, and women's liberation being the sort of primary planks of a social struggle, which no longer actually desires a separate state at all. In fact, sees itself as in essential opposition to the very idea of a state. This is something which we haven't seen anything really like it happen in many years. I mean, there's the Zapatistas. This is the closest parallel one can think of. But even the Zapatistas don't really control a contiguous territory, whereas these people actually do.
And there's been, I suppose, what could seem a somewhat bizarre or strange or unlikely alliance between this movement in Rojava, libertarian socialist, and the United States. So it was the combination of those two forces that was capable of defeating ISIS since 2014, and it is protection from the United States. It's protected Rojava from other enemies, well, Turkey, which is what we'll get onto in a moment.
If you want me to do the background, I can. It was a PKK originally that had this profound transformation. What happened in Syria was PYD. It was a political party with very similar ideology. Also follows the writings of Öcalan and whatnot. They're not directly connected, but during the Syrian Revolution, essentially, the Syrian government pulled out of that area. It had been very strongly organized, the Kurdish parts of Syria. And negotiations ensued, and they basically talked the Syrian forces into just pulling out and leaving people there to handle their own affairs. I mean, they took everything when they left. I mean, down to the light bulbs, I mean, all government offices were stripped of everything. The Syrian government essentially, and the sort of lackeys and flunkies and sort of magnates who had privatized all the stuff and really sort of crony capitalists all took off too. So they were in an incredibly advantageous situation. All the government buildings had nothing in them, but they were empty. And they suddenly had the situation where they were actually able to put the things they'd been working out and discussing in theory for 20 years into effect. Now, at first, basically nobody noticed them. Then there were several attacks from various jihadists, largely who seemed to have been funded, if not absolutely directed by the Turkish secret police. But gradually, the Kurdish region ended up in a conflict with ISIS. The origins of ISIS still remain obscure, but it's very clear that Turkish intelligence, along with various Gulf state intelligence, had a lot to do with putting them together. And they seem to have coordinated quite well with Turkish authorities of various kinds. They're trading with Turkey. For example, during the height of ISIS, the Caliphate was openly trading oil with Turkey while the Kurdish region was under total embargo. They couldn't even bring
Erdogan's son-in-law was involved, wasn't
Yes,
he?
he was.
All right, and we are back. It's about 3 more minutes, but I mean, one accent is enough. We don't need any more accents. One's enough. Gene's enough. He's the one we
David Graeber's from America.
Yeah, but he's got British teeth.
He's got very British
That's
teeth.
brutal. That's
He
brutal.
had British teeth. That's not nice. He's dead, man.
He passed away. It is sad.
He passed
I
He was
actually
taken from us way too soon.
I
It was a
enjoyed
great
bullshit
shock.
jobs.
And he was greatly mourned in the Kurdish community. There was a lot of people.
Really?
A lot of people. There's a lot of Kurdish leftists in London, and yeah, he was like very close with a number of people who I know, and yeah, he was like very well respected as an advocate for Rojava. Now, his little story about Rojava is like a little bit too romantic, like.
Someone said the PKK stuff has been debunked. Is that true?
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Well, a lot of people. There's some people on the left who believe the KKK, the PKK. That's terrible. PKK and Rojava were kind of pawns of the U.S. to destabilize the Assad regime.
Yeah, well, that's not true by any stretch of the imagination. The whole reason the PYD, the PKK's Syrian branch, was able to establish itself is because historically Syrian intelligence had supported the PKK against Turkey. Now there was, for a variety of reasons, the Syrians had to give up, had to kick out Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the PKK, from Syria in the 1990s. Basically, Turkey said, if you don't kick him out, we're going to invade. Syria has a long sort of laundry list of disputes with Turkey. Turkey controls a province, the province of Hatay, which was basically taken from Syria and given to Turkey during the Second World War. There's whole issues with dams and things like that. So the PYD, one of the reasons they were the group that eventually took over was because they were the only organized group. And the reason they were the only organized group is because the Syrian government often attempted to direct Kurdish political activism in Syria towards Turkey. They were like, okay, Kurds are kind of like marginalized in Syria. Many of them like had citizenship stripped from them. So they were basically allowed to go fight in the PKK against Turkey. And the PKK was basically fighting against NATO's second largest army. The fact that the PYD allied with the United States happened under very specific conditions. Those conditions were Turkey's attempt to create a united front against the Assad regime collapsed. ISIS was going ham in Iraq. So as an ally of last resort, they allied with the PYD. But their initial plan was to ally with this sort of, these like moderate rebels that turned out to be all like Al Qaeda and Al Qaeda adjacent people. That whole project fell to pieces. So the United States, and I was in Iraq at the time, right? The Americans were like, what do we do? Because it would have been a huge humiliation after the fall of Mosul to have like another major ISIS victory, because people were terrified of ISIS in 2014. I moved to Iraq like 2 months after ISIS took Mosul. And people, those forces were seen as unstoppable. They were never as powerful as people believed. But, what happened in this fall was you had the siege of Kobani. And you had this like big defense being mounted in Kobani. And the Americans weren't going to intervene. But when it looked like ISIS was going to take the border, basically they stepped in with air support. Even Turkey allowed the Iraqi Kurds to send troops to Kobani to like try and, try and like increase Iraqi Kurdish influence in Syria. There's a whole lot of complicated issues around it. And you know, anarchists, there's a lot of like laudable things that the people in Rojava have done for women's emancipation, for like dismantling certain aspects of the national security state, for having like local government and popular, you know, democracy, for addressing ecological issues. But it's also important to remember the PKK is still, you know, under Öcalan was one of the most centralized and authoritarian socialist parties in the world. And that structure has not entirely disappeared. You know, the PKK that is in the mountains is still under the control of the same people who come out of the 1970s. So, you know, anarchists, you know, on one hand, you've got like a faction of the left who are like, Rojava are all stooges of American imperialism and Assad's the good guy. And then you've also got a whole bunch of people like, oh, Rojava is like paradise on earth. Let's all go do hijra there and like see this anarchist. And, you know, like, I've met people who thought that. I haven't been to Syria myself, but I'm like, they had like PYD people in Suleimania when I was living there. You know, it's like their feminism is like, it's very moralistic and Spartan. Like, you don't have sex in the mountains, right? You know, that shit's not allowed one bit. So, yeah, I mean, like one of the women.
They're not sex positive feminists.
They're not sex positive feminists. They may be changed a bit now. I mean, a lot of the women who ended up in thing were rape survivors, right? You know, like one of the reasons women joined the PKK en masse, or like a significant degree, was because Kurdish society it was highly feudal and highly patriarchal, and one of the few sort of ways that a young woman could get out of like being married off to like some old dude in the village with honor, right, and not be subject, was to join the PKK. And one part of the reason the PKK was able to do that was because like there's no hanky panky up in the mountains. We're all sitting here reading the collective works of Öcalan and doing that kind of stuff. So it's like kind of it's like I have like a lot of respect for the Rojava experiment. I don't have a lot of time for the whining from like the gray zone people about it all, like all about being like, it's American imperialism.
Dude, watch out, man! I can't have Aaron Mate looking for me.
If you're going to talk about if America is imperialist, which it is, and but at the same time, the Assad regime is being backed by Russia. Is Russia not an imperialist country? Syria is an inter-imperialist conflict. There are many different sides in the conflict. There are, and at the end of the day, out of the three sides, which is like batshit crazy Islamists backed by Turkey, Russia's support for the Syrian government, and Rojava, the side that has acquitted itself as the most civilized place in Syria, not that it can't be criticized, not that there aren't things to say, is Rojava, right? And
I just let me tell you, I'm not saying I disagree with that potentiality. That my point is this: I don't necessarily believe that we're in some kind of binary where if you don't support the removal of Assad, it's because you think Assad is great. I think there's an argument that you don't support the removal of Assad because those who supported the removal of Gaddafi, the removal of Saddam, what happened next? And that one of the main reasons that I do not support the removal of Assad is that I saw what happened when Libya went down. I saw what happened when Saddam went down in Iraq, and I don't think the United States has the capacity, goodwill, or organizational strength to be able to deal with what Syria looks like in a post-Assad world that they help facilitate.
Hey, I don't agree with like a regime change war to get rid of Assad, and I'm not saying all people who are against regime change in Syria are, pro-Assad, but there are elements of the left who soft pedal what the Assad regime has done. I would say this, the Islamists that are in Idlib province that are on Turkish back are probably way worse than the Assad regime. And the Assad regime has genuine support. If you're a minority in Syria, if you're not like from the Sunni majority, there's a lot of reasons why you would rally behind Assad. So I think we can take a kind of nuanced approach to it. People might not like my take on Rojava, be that what that is what it's meant. What it is, but frankly, it's one of the few places where there's some kind of experiment in socialism taking place, and it hasn't been the most brutal regime as a governing regime. And a lot of the research coming out of there, is kind of showing that, even Arabs are saying like, yeah, we don't buy totally into the Rojava project, but there's a lot of good things. Like we get to vote on how things are run in our local communities. I think that's positive. So I agree, Pascal. If I was in charge, if you put me in charge of like what America should do, and I was like, had a choice, I'd be like, just get some kind of like peace treaty between Rojava and the Syrian regime, open up the trade, and like make sure that these two sides don't have conflict. And that's what I would like to see happen. But of course, it's a complicated issue, because one of the positive things you might say in the kind of imperial game is that so long as America is supporting Rojava, it's creating tensions with the bigger American stooge in the Middle East, which is Turkey, which has been the central platform of the projection of American imperial power into the Middle East for decades. And as much as Turkish nationalists like to cosplay Kurds are all the tools of imperialism, it is not the Kurds or any Kurdish political party that is in NATO. It has like a largely American armed and trained military, and has American air bases from which the United States police the Middle East. So when people go on about Turkey and all this anti-imperialist stuff, I'm like, just get out of my face. These guys have been like the big kahuna for American support. So whatever.
Well, I like your take.
You like my take?
I like your take for whatever that's worth. I don't know.
I appreciate that, Jamie. I appreciate that.
I feel like some of it might just be sectarianism too. Like if it were still a sort of traditional Marxist-Leninist national liberation project, I feel like the tankies might be a little more willing to support it. I don't know.
Well, it's because honestly, I think the problem is that since the end of the Cold War, the like kind of neat logic, like it didn't even make sense in the Cold War, but there was a kind of logic where you could say like, these guys are like pro-Soviet, these guys are pro-American. So if they're like anti-American and pro-Soviet, we know who the good guys are. But we've been totally kind of like bamboozled by the new geopolitical circumstances. Like China isn't going around backing national liberation movements. So like we can't really say this movement is pro-Chinese if we think China is socialist and we should like transfer our loyalty towards Beijing. But it's not going around doing all that kind of stuff. So, at the end of the day, we have an inter-imperialist conflict with like a bunch of bad guys getting their oar in. So like, how do we judge who's the good guy in the conflict? Well, I think the most positive things coming out of Syria today, which is a freaking disaster zone, is Rojava. And I think another reason it's a good thing is because it demolishes this narrative that both secular militarist nationalists and Islamists are the only two choices. You either have like a Sisi dictator or Assad, or you have a freaking, Erdogan or Al-Qaeda, right? And it says, hey, not all people in the Middle East are necessarily following that simple binary, and there are alternatives. And actually, I've more been interested in the movement in Turkey, the HDP, the constitutionalist sort of movement in Turkey as well, which I think is actually, ideologically speaking, a lot more interesting. But is like less authoritarian than, the PYD or PKK. But, it is what it is. Nobody likes Kurds, right? Kurds are the stooges of American imperialism. So, we deal with that.
It just kind of, I guess it doesn't confuse me that much, but like when people think that the US is the only imperialist power and somehow pretzel themselves into supporting other imperialist powers as long as they're opposing the US, right? Like let's take China off the table, right? Let's take like a power like Russia, or like you're talking about the Assad regime that is in no way, shape, or form arguably having anything to do with socialism. People will still pretzel themselves into saying, oh yeah, that's the side I choose because it's not the US.
You think it's just as simple as that? Like they just are so anti-US?
I don't think it's that simple at all, because I know a lot of people, particularly at Black Agenda Report, at Black Alliance for Peace, who realize that China, Syria, and Russia ain't got over 800 military bases all over the world, arming and causing coup d'etats left and right all over the global south, or bankrolling countries like Saudi Arabia. So my position is that America may not be the only imperialist country in the world, but it sure as damn well is the worst imperialist country in the world. And I don't think we can make a comparison between America's legacy of imperialism in the world and Russia's and China's.
I took China off the table.
Okay.
Yeah,
well.
China's off the table.
Yeah, you just yelling for no
don't-
reason, Pascal. You can't Thanos somebody with just
I'm
reason.
sidestepping the is China socialist debate because I need to learn more about it before I can argue with people.
That's
And
usually why we have Dr.
And I
Bear
think
on.
that is a take that a lot more people on the online left should be willing to take. Like, I don't know enough about the topic to be making a declarative a statement. There's a lot of people who talk a lot of shit about things that they don't know very much about. You don't hear me talking about Burma because I don't know shit about Burma, right?
Yeah, but we do know.
Should we
Let me
call
ask you a
Cuba?
question. Is there a greater imperial power in the world than the United States?
No, there is no greater imperial power in the world than the United States. But I would also say imperialism is not simply one country. It is a system. It's a system of global domination in which there are subsidiary powers, there are anti-hegemonic powers, but they're all playing the same game. Does that mean, at the end of the day, I want to see, an end to imperialism. But also at the same time, I don't think, I think we need to be understanding that imperialism is a system made up of multiple countries engaging in a great game over control of economic resources and powers all over the global south. And they're all ready to, they all want to be the top dog. America happens to be the top dog. And I totally agree, Pascal. I am not disputing that America it has all these military bases and is the big dog. But in certain countries, America is not the big dog, right? In some situations, America is. In most situations, America is. But when you're talking about imperialism in the Caucasus, it's not America that's the problem. It's Russia that's the problem. When we're talking about imperialism in Central Asia, it's Russia. It is, the United States is a second-ranked player in the game for Central Asia. Around most of the world, America is the big power, but it's not true in every single part of the world. That's the only.
And would you agree that it just looks differently in these other countries as well?
Well, if you're looking from the position of Rojava, you're not like focusing you're not going to martyr yourself for the sake of like the butthurt feelings of some like leftists in New York City. No offense to New York City, right? You have to look after your own, your own interests and your own political projects, right? No revolution in history has ever been achieved without the aid of playing imperial powers off against one another. The Haitian Revolution, Pascal, you know better than I, in part was aided by one of the most rapacious
triangulation against empire.
Yeah, was aided by the Spanish Empire, and the Haitians, they weren't stooges of the Spanish Empire. They used the Spanish Empire, despite the Spanish Empire being a more powerful side and thing, to kick the ass out of the French and then kick the ass out of the British, right? Even the Bolshevik Revolution was partly realized thanks to the support of Imperial Russia, which was the big dog imperialist messing around with Russia in 1917. So, I'm not trying to say this to say we shouldn't be critical of anybody, or we shouldn't, we should like, I really dislike the kind of over romanticization by some anarchists about Rojava. It feels a bit weird. There's also the girl boss kind of angle. I got this exciting new book here, which you can see, Daughters of Kobani. The Clintons will be making a TV show based on this.
Is that the movie you were showing me a while back, Gene?
I wrote an article in Jacobin about this movie being how perverse it is, because like Bill Clinton was the guy who literally freaking armed Turkey to the teeth to fight the PKK. So my point is not to like, talk shit, like to say like you can't be critical or you can't say like anything about Rojava. My point is to say is that, you tell me a freaking rebel movement that fucking succeeded and a revolution that succeeded without some dirty imperial planet, and well done to you, because I can't think of one. That's my only point, Pascal. Does that make sense?
Getting geopolitical in the post game.
Pascal.
I'm yabbering on about Rojava, and we wanted to talk about toxic masculinity, especially on the left. I want to talk about that.
I didn't know this we want to talk about, and this is my.
Well, we're going to talk about all kinds of things. Pascal, you wanted to ask about the crisis in masculinity.
Yeah, I was interested.
Oh my God! Why are you trying to Finkelstein this show?
I asked if we could talk about it in the last segment. You were out playing with your hat or something. That's why you didn't hear it.
Maybe.
Anyway, Jamie, did you want to make a point before we pivot?
No, I do not.
You don't want to talk about the problems with toxic masculinity on the left?
Oh, sure.
There's a lot.
She might have some dirty laundry to air.
No.
What if she had an essay ready, like just for this occasion?
That's why I'm joining the PKK.
I actually have a question about this. I actually wanted to ask about this on the left. So, and we talk about this on This Is Revolution quite a lot. I am like I'm not a Pascal and I'm not a Jason, but I'm the token Kurd on the show. I like to think of myself as
Gene is a part of the show. Gene is a part of the show. Gene's family and him are part of the show. You are part of the show.
And well, one thing that we talk about is, and we talk about this on air, we talk about this off air, the online left, which is significant. It is this new media sphere which people get their news from, and it is something that is growing.
God,
it is dominated by white men, and not any old white man, but it's dominated by a particular PMC / graduate school / downwardly mobile bourgeois, and it seems to be, even though it just seems to be a very male space, and there seems to be a lot of sausage energy going on. And we all know about your history in podcasting and in shows and things like that. And I kind of wanted to get your take on the kind of like the bro stuff when it comes to the left.
Bro / incel?
Bro / incel.
I'll say this. Can I say this before you answer that question, Jamie? It's so hard to book women on the show because I feel like every time I'm trying to book someone on the show, that they think I'm getting at them.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't think that.
Thank you.
The
last thing I ever want someone to think is I'm trying to be like, say, got a podcast. Like,
Jason's not into white women.
Not at all. Can't do it. It's bad for
you. All right. Fair enough. We're a bit of a mixed bag, I will admit. Hashtag not all white women.
You said not. You said hashtag not. How fucked up would it be if a white woman just walked out of the closet right there?
Mm-hmm. And I want to say, like, I'm technically, I am like literally a grad school elite, downwardly mobile bourgeois white guy, except when I go to the airport. But most of the time I get to be white.
I'm sure flying with you sucks.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it's got better over the years, but like when your dad's called Ahmed Abdullah Aziz.
Yeah, I'm not flying with that guy. I'm getting way too patted down.
Anyway, we're cutting Jamie off. Let's hear from Jamie. Your thoughts.
Sorry, Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie, hold up, Jamie. Just to let you know that you finna say this shit uninterrupted. Whole screen, and we're not.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm gonna do just so you know that you're gonna say this shit. I have muted the voices of all men, including myself. So you get this shit off your chest. And if you got to stutter and get some ums and ands in there, you take your time and do your thing.
I appreciate that. Amplify women's voices. No, yeah. I mean, I don't think this problem is exclusive to the left at all. We live in a patriarchal society, and the left is not just some utopian bubble. Like, it's suffused with all of these dynamics that exist in the world, including patriarchy, including white supremacy, And, I think it's better on average than society at large, but it certainly exists. And we have to be, taking measures to counteract it. Otherwise, it's just going to continue and it's going to suck. I mean, I run into this problem myself when I realize, oh shit, we haven't had a woman guest on in a while. Why is that? Why are all the people doing the podcast circuit largely, like you said, these downwardly mobile, millennial, white, Bernie bro men? And, I'm part of that. Like, I'm some of those things, right? Like, I'm very open about the fact that I'm a downwardly mobile, white PMC myself. And there's some aspects of my identity that are, normative and some that are not. But how do we deal with it? I don't know. I think it's a good start to be on the lookout for women who are creating content, if we're talking about the leftist media ecosystem, and maybe some people who aren't as well known, and reach out to them, have them on your show, listen to the things they say. I mean, we need, like, feminism. It's not just for women, right? It's for everybody. Like, we know that all these systems of oppression are interlocking, and we know that our socialism needs to be feminist and it needs to be anti-racist in order to be effective, and in order to account for all the ways that these things intersect with capitalism. So I don't know. I don't claim to have all the answers, but listen to women. Listen to the things we say. Don't interrupt them. And a lot of the time, maybe men might do it without even realizing it, because that's just the way that we are socialized to behave in this world. And there have been times when it's been harder for me to speak up or to just plow through when somebody's interrupting me or treating me like I'm a dumb bitch, just because I've been socialized to let other people talk and wait my turn, except when my ADHD comes out, and then I can get a little interrupty. But yeah. Oh, shout out to Nomiki. Someone said in the chat, Nomiki does do a good job of making a femme-friendly show / environment. I've been going on the Nobi Key show a little bit on Fridays. I think it's called Femme Fridays. So that's pretty cool. But also, like, women can do their part too. We got it. Girls got to stick together. Like, we are very much incentivized by society to compete with other women, particularly, and want to be like the cool girl, who hangs with the guys and fuck other women. But I'm not saying that you should just like someone just because she's a woman, but my orientation, and I'm always looking out for these tendencies in myself, but my orientation is generally I want to like other women until they give me a reason not to, versus the more competitive, nasty tendencies. Yeah, I'm not bringing up my former boss at all. Thank you for the props in the chat. I'm trying to speak in generalities because it's not exclusive to any particular man. Like, this is a problem that really exists on the left and in society. But I think we're doing all right. I don't know. DSA has some good progressive measures that we use. I mean, this is not the online left, right? This is the IRL left. But when we have meetings, we use a thing called progressive stack. So white guys can talk a little later in the stack, and people who are not white guys can talk a little sooner, because that's to counteract people's hesitancy to get up and make their voices heard. Some people are trained to be fucking leaders and other people are not. So that's about all I got to say about that. I'm looking at the chat now and I'm getting distracted.
Sorry. So the after hours is the only time that I actually put the chat up, because we don't have trolls.
Generally. Oh yeah, nice.
So we had a troll before, and it totally, like, I could see Pascal and a guest we had reading the chat, and the guy was the show was about 1619, and the guy was on some serious, like, Ta-Nehisi Coates bullshit, and he was trying to quote Gerald Horne. It was just frustrating. And we all got into a very big argument. And so every time the guy comes in, his chat name is Tapwater. And Pascal's like, man, you gotta like ban that guy. I was like, nah, Just ignore him. Just fuck that dude.
Nice.
So now we take it off during the main show, so you don't see it. And then for this show, generally people are pretty friendly on this side.
That's good. Yeah, it's been good so far. I like our fans too for that reason. They tend to be very cool and chill and respectful. And maybe someday we'll blow up and we'll have a lot of fans, and some of them will be hogs. But as of now,
Hogs, you said, or hunks?
hogs.
Hogs.
Swine.
We the hogs. That's
Yeah,
how
exactly.
Chapo.
Like
That's how
deliverance?
Chapo talks about their fans.
Oh, they call them hogs, like the Redskins' offensive line.
Like the hogs need their slop.
Like
Oink
a pig.
oink. And you know what? Some Chapo fans are hogs. No offense.
Don't get me going about that whole thing.
So, Jamie, I wanted to ask you a question about the perception that some on the left, and I've had that perception as well, that the Brooklyn GSA is basically a bunch of gentrifying hipsters cosplaying socialism, using that positionality to kind of displace people of color with their own particular brand of politics in that municipality. I'm originally from New York City, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about that allegation.
I mean, that allegation is more often than not being flung by liberals, like the Black political class that you just referenced, even against other people of color who are running for office. I saw it used on my friend Jabari Brisport when he was running, both times, actually, when he was running for, what was he running for the first time? I canvassed for him, so I should know this. City council, I don't know, he didn't win. But then this time around, he did win. And they tried to fling that accusation against us, even though a lot of our endorsed candidates are people of color who represent the community that they're from. I don't know. I mean, a lot of us are white. A lot of us are transplants. I would say it's more diverse than a lot of people think it is. It's about as diverse as, the creative class is in Brooklyn, but not as diverse as we could be and should be.
It's not very diverse.
And not just in terms of race either. I think in terms of class, most of us, I don't want to generalize, but most of us are college educated, kind of downwardly mobile millennials, like like we've been discussing. But I think DSA tries really hard to form coalitions with other grassroots organizations that are led by Black and brown people. I know the abolition work that we've been doing certainly does. And we're always trying to get better at it. But at the end of the day, we do need some kind of working class universalism while acknowledging the different ways that different members of the working class are oppressed, certainly. But we are all workers. And I think a lot of this PMC discourse kind of serves to mystify what's actually going on and people's class position and what our interests are, like a broke ass college student who is paying more than half of their income in rent has interests that are much more aligned with their Black and brown neighbors than with their landlord. So I think we gotta not we need to take these things into account to the point, to the degree that they help us, and not engage in endless neurotic self-flagellation about it, because that's not going to help.
Can you give me an example of the flagellation?
Oh, I mean, it happens. Trust me.
Did you ever run across Jennifer Krug, the fake Latin America woman?
Wait, just La Bombalera?
Yeah, La Bombalera.
La
Who was talking about her? Was
Bombalera.
that you, Gene? You had met her before or worked with her?
No, I asked. You had a guest on, Dr.
was it?
Leeds, who works
Asia
in the
Leeds.
same. Yeah, Asia Leeds, who works in the same field. And I said, ask her if she ever met Jessica La Bombalera, and she didn't want to talk about it because it was going to get serious.
Wow.
Well, that whole shit is serious, man. Like,
I
did you
have
ever
not
watch
met
that
her.
documentary on what's the woman's name? Rachel Dolezal?
I tried. It was too much. I couldn't watch it. It was too much.
You know what made me sad? Her son and her brother make you
Her
really
son
sad.
realized she was a nut.
That shit was so sad. Like her brother couldn't go to Howard, and that's where she went. And her brother's black, by the way. Her family adopted 2 black kids.
Really?
So she's grown up with black people.
So did you ever meet Jessica LaBambalera?
I did not.
Such a shame. She seems
Fortunately, I never met her.
But Jamie, I just want to let you know, it's not only the black professional manager, the black political class that makes that critique. There's lots of people on the black left who make that critique about the DSA, State Department socialists as well. So I'm just,
For sure. I've mostly heard it, like in terms of local politics, I've mostly heard it from liberals in the same way that, like, you know, they tried to use that as a cudgel against Bernie Sanders. But I'm sure, like, of course, I've heard that criticism from leftists as well. And yeah, I think we gotta always be working on it and try to do things that, you know, form coalitions and solidarity with oppressed communities. And I think the Defund campaign is a good example of taking these issues seriously and getting involved. But yeah, I don't know. You have any suggestions for me? I'm all like, I'm open to suggestions.
Yes, I do have a suggestion, as a matter of fact, and I don't see this happening. You guys got to penetrate black churches.
So
see the face she made. You got to watch more Tyler Perry movies, is what he's saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, you got to penetrate because the black churches are the linchpin connection for the black political class. You guys have to definitely go in and do penetration into the black church communities.
Do you think they? Because I feel like there's a divide that I've noticed between sort of older, more maybe conservative members of the black community, black working class, and younger, maybe more radical members. And I don't know who, like, I don't know the composition of a black church, but yeah, it is.
The Tyler Perry movie.
It is. I have not. It is something that I think of, but I feel like the young radicals don't go to church so much.
And those young radicals have absolutely no ideological control over blac politics.
Thank you. Yeah,
don't they?
Yeah, they don't.
I mean, what do you define politics as?
The ability to affect policy decisions and change on a local and national level.
I mean, what would you call like the insurrection of last summer? Is that not a kind of black politics?
Or are you talking about the people who were burning stuff in the streets?
I'm talking about the more militant elements, which I think
the response
really.
You want to know what happened? Hey, you want to know? Hey, I'll tell you what happened out here. I'll tell you real shit. Since you want to know, out here, these motherfuckers that was like, yeah, defund the police, defund. You know what happened when the police was like, fine. They had a committee of motherfuckers. And they said, whatever you do, please don't fire cops. Because we're not scared of police. We're scared of other black people shooting our kids. So please don't fire any cops. So a lot of people burned shit down and got mad and said a lot of silly shit. But at the end of the day, not much shit has changed, has it? Other than Derek Chauvin got thrown under the bus for the system to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean,
I get really kind of upset because I worked with the unhoused and I lived amongst the unhoused for a very long time. And I don't think people really understand how this shit works. You don't just say, oh, just get some mental health workers out there to do the same shit police do, just with no guns. You're still policing people.
Yeah.
You're still telling them their behavior is bad. Like that shit's not going away. So that shit didn't change. It shit did not change.
I mean, it would certainly be a step in the right direction to have people without guns who are trained to respond to mental health crises.
I've told the story a million times on this show about dealing with those situations and we have crisis people. They're severely underpaid. We live in a fantasy world where we think that these people are going to, first of all, who's going to hire them? Are they going to be coming from a third party? What kind of experience are they going to have? We never ask any of these questions. We just assume that the shit's just going to work out the way we want it to work out. When you have a 22-year-old kid talking to a 60-year-old drug addict that's been chronically homeless their whole life, they don't listen to him that well.
Yeah, I mean, you're pointing at the fact that we really need structural change that goes way, way, way beyond that, right?
Yes.
When I hear people say defund the police, my first reaction is when people say, do you support abolishing the police and abolishing prisons? I say I'm interested in abolishing the phenomenon that caused the need for police and prisons, which is poverty. You know?
And capitalism itself, right?
That's a foregone conclusion. But my larger point is, I think I don't have a problem with people. People have the right to say what they want and advocate for what they want. If you want to advocate for abolish the cops, I'm sympathetic, no problem. You want to defund the police, okay, fine. But what I'm saying is that with the understanding of that the role of the police is to basically relegate the poor to surplus, redundant labor, and prison to be housed. As long as this is a capitalist society, we ain't getting rid of no cops. So the question becomes, how do we visualize a society and an ideological infrastructure where cops are rendered obsolete by the fact that we diminish the reality that poverty is used to keep capitalism working in this country?
Yeah, and around the world.
That's true.
For sure.
I want to swing back to the church question, and I want to kind of double down on that, right? And the reason I want to double down on that is the example of what happened with the HDP in Turkey, right? For years, the Kurdish left in Turkey was kind of stuck around 6% of the vote, right? They could mobilize 6% of the vote, partly because of their vision that they were like a secular political organization, and they were unwilling to go into socially conservative groups to try and win them over. It was only when they kind of like softened their line towards like pious Muslims, right, which is a fucking hell of a lot of people, right, who are socially conservative, that they won them over to support the HDP, which is one of the most radical political organizations in the Middle East. That is for full, LGBTQ rights in the Middle East, right, which is more radical than the HDP's political platform. Take a look at it. The LGBTQ, their workers' rights are more radical than any mainstream American politician. Then they won in 2015 before they were shut down and repressed by the state. They won like 12% of the national vote, right? And I would double down. I think there's got to be a way. Like, I find like on the left, and I used to be like this myself. I used to be, like really hostile towards religion, right? And I see like, amongst many leftists, there's a kind of like almost evangelical elan to a kind of atheism. And I find that militant atheism, is like politically counterproductive.
Really? I have not seen that on the left at all. Sorry. If anything, I've seen the opposite.
That's really interesting. Maybe,
who are the church people on the left?
Oh, there aren't church people
Cornel
on the left.
West.
No, but yeah. Oh yeah, Cornel West counts for sure. For sure.
Come on, man. Cornel West his religiosity is part of a. Anyway, I'm not gonna. Cornel West is cool. I like Cornel, but I don't think his.
We're trying to get him on the show, so we can't shit on him too hard.
I don't think that his main appeal is as a church person. All right, Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges is a seminarian, and he does talk about his religiosity. But I don't think that the most of this under 45, under 40 contemporary left is remotely religious at all.
I mean, I guess it's partly a matter of we lack diversity in terms of our age as well, because young people tend to be less into religion. But like this is something that I've thought a lot about, because I think, at times in history, the left has kind of bent the stick too far in the direction away from religion. That's putting it mildly, like killing all the priests and whatnot. And at other times in history, the left has formed coalitions and alliances with the church to varying degrees of success.
Especially when it comes to abolition. Yeah, I agree.
But I think I want to go back to like the base and the superstructure, right? Because religion is part of the superstructure. Religion is not inherently liberatory. Religion is not inherently conservative. Religion manifests in any number of ways based on all the other factors of what's going on in society, what's going on in the economy, what's going on in people's lives. So I think the militant atheists are doing it wrong when you think, oh yeah, we can have a more secular society just by like arguing people out of their beliefs. I think the religious left might be wrong on some level. Like I think religion is, it's a personal matter. I think we should have some separation between church and government or governance or state. And I think, I'm friends with all different kinds of religions, different kinds of religious people in DSA. But like one of my best friends in DSA actually is a Muslim. He was raised Catholic and converted to Islam, and he's very much believes in it, but also believes that the religion and politics shouldn't really mix, and that it's not a fruitful road for us to go down as a left.
But what would you say about there's a book, and I don't know if you read it, The Feminist and the Offender. These two women wrote, and they actually talk a lot about having to work with religious groups, especially when it comes to anti-death penalty and abolishing the death penalty, because it's mostly a lot of religious groups on that end. And they talk about the contradictions and the issues with that. But
I mean, we can certainly, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, we can certainly form coalitions to work on certain issues and come together on them. But I do think historically, when secular leftist movements have allied themselves with social conservatives, I'm not saying every single church is socially conservative, certainly not. But I think we should be able to form coalitions and work with people on things without changing our core values, which includes, respect for sex workers' rights. It includes a respect for LGBT people. So there are some churches that are totally on board with that, and there are others that are not.
Well, I think that what we have to realize is that, we are at the short end of the stick, and they are structural parts of communities in this country that we need to get to appeal to their members to make our politics work. All of this discussion about us not being able to, quote unquote, sacrifice our politics is great, and the need to make coalitions. But what the reality of the fact is, we're not going to make any kind of penetration ideologically, socially with people in this country unless we go to the places that they find are necessary for their edification. And if we leave those spaces empty, they will be subsumed by the reactionary right, as they already are, and we will always be at the short end of the stick. And at least with the black churches, because the reactionary right has not penetrated them completely, though they have made headways on certain subject matters like Israel and so on and so forth. And we also know that the black church does have certain factions that are liberatory, that are challenging materialism, that are, you think about people like your Reverend Wrights, you think about liberation theology, so on and so forth.
Well, Reverend Barber. I mean, I think Reverend Barber is doing,
exactly.
We can talk about what he's doing now since
these
he got that
people
money.
Need to be penetrated, and they need, these organizations, institutions need to be appealed to. And I'll be very honest, even though I never thought that Sanders had a chance, I think that one of the reasons why Sanders got blown out in South Carolina is that Bernie Sanders did not make inroads into the ideological superstructure of black communities and politics, which is the black church. Period. Now, yes, does the black church work in a patronage relationship to the Democratic Party? Absolutely. Sanders probably doesn't have that patronage. DSA probably doesn't have that patronage. That does not mean that should stop you from going into these institutions and making your arguments in a way that can appeal to the sense of justice to their members, and maybe you get 3 members of the church that come to your DSA meeting. Maybe you get 4, maybe you get 1. That's one person in that church that can give out your flyers, that could promote your podcasts, that can promote your meetings.
What do you think? That's, you know, what's so interesting about this too, and I lived. I think people on the show know, but as someone said, the chat is growing, and I don't know, Jamie. I don't know you. I'll tell you this about me. I lived with a white family that was not my own, a Christian conservative, right wing, donate to the Republican Party ass family. I didn't grow up with them my whole life. I lived with them for quite a few years. And one thing I will say is the right is in the church, and they've been there for a minute, and they totally fuck shit up. Totally fuck shit up. Like, you have no idea about how the right fucks shit up. They think politically. They go into the church with a plan. I'm finna use God, and you guys are gonna follow these crazy ass beliefs I have. So I surrender.
I don't know if that can be reproduced by the left. I'm not sure.
Are they scared?
First of all, I got another institution. Why isn't the quote unquote DSA left not penetrating? Historically black colleges and universities, young people. What's the excuse there?
I couldn't tell you.
James Cone.
Jamie is the queen of the Antifa. She's not the queen of DSA. So
it's true. My involvement in DSA is pretty limited right now to the defund NYPD campaign that we're currently doing.
My goal is not to chastise you because you're not the leader of DSA, but you asked me for suggestions, and I brought a few. I brought a couple of institutions. If we want to concede that the church, because of ideology and religiosity, and age, is a difficult terrain to broach. Okay, let's put the church out. Historically black colleges, young people, not as religious, ideologically open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
What's the outreach?
I mean, I don't know that that's not happening. I don't know everything that goes on in, every state.
That's fair.
Every DSA.
That's fair. But I think the question is, we all know that a lot of cats just aren't.
And I will say a lot of our canvassing back when we were still, doing the Bernie thing was centered around public colleges, at least here in New York City. And a lot of our voter registration was as well, where there was a higher proportion of black and brown students.
That helps.
Oh, look, somebody says, they grew up in a right-wing family. There's ways you can reverse it. Of course, there's ways you can reverse it. There's definitely ways you can reverse it. I see these people. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them as much because of COVID, and just, I get some mail there. But
my friend who you had on the show, John Graham, he came out of the evangelical church, and now he's pretty left, and his religion informs his leftism, because it's like, how can you be preaching the gospel of Jesus and at the same time be worshiping capitalism, which he sees as I think there's a lot of
there are many different ways that it could go.
But would you agree, Jamie? Would you agree that there is a disconnect?
You don't want to get Khomeini like the Iranians
everybody.
And I think there are some positive lessons we can take from the church, like back to this little weird debate about, is the left a church? Is the left not a church? Like, church is where people go for community and to get their freaking emotional, spiritual, and material needs met. So it would be good if the left were more like that. But I'm not sure that, religion itself is really going to be a fruitful collaboration. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not wrong. But
something we did at the homeless shelter. Some people wanted church. There's 300 and some people. It's a hotel shelter. So I don't know if they were doing those in New York like they were doing them in California. We actually had a program for it. And, a lot of different religions. But people wanted church, and they also wanted a little bit of normalcy. And during that time was a time where you could get a lot of people in the same room feeling good overall, brought a pastor in that had a pretty Unitarian message. It wasn't too fire and brimstone-y. It was love your neighbory for like 30 minutes. And if you really have something you're trying to do, You can come in right before or right after, and now everybody's in the mood to listen. Nobody knew I was Jason the Marks guy. Right?
I mean, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, Jason. Hey, I have some fun questions.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll just refer you. I'll like drop a link to this and you can like read it on your own time, to a blog post that I wrote a while back in response to an argument that I was having with Michael, RIP, rest in power. We did not always agree on everything. Where did it go? About how or Daniel Ortega's government in Nicaragua went from being something very radical, and a lot of feminist groups actually were very instrumental in helping them get to power, and then eventually made alliances with the Catholic Church through feminists under the bus, really, outlawed abortion. And was this the result of or kept abortion illegal, I should say? Was this the result of like some kind of bottom-up religious awakening? No, in this case, it was a process of concessions to both the religious right and to neoliberalism in service of keeping himself in power of what was once like a very revolutionary socialist project. And I don't remember everything I said in here, but I'm gonna send it to you guys anyway and see what you think.
Go for it.
It was based on an article that I read by Karen Campworth, but it was in response to a stupid argument that was happening about Elizabeth Brunig. So I decided to do a little bit of research and see what I uncovered. But yeah, let's get to some fun questions. I don't know if honestly, I need to like talk to more people about this. I need to like really gel. I'll probably have my friend on the show who has been like more vocal about this than I have, and see what I think. I will say the thought of a bunch of DSA members as it's currently composed, like going to a black church and trying to talk about socialism is kind of funny to me.
It's really hilarious.
The conversation doesn't have to start like be a socialist. It has to be like, why is it that let's have a conversation about gentrification? Oh my God. There's an interesting thing to talk about.
Also, certainly. Yeah, I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
I've never been to a black church in New York. What are they like, Pascal? You're black. And from
very, very neoliberal. The big ones.
Are they? Do they get down though? Do they shout?
Some of them do, yeah. You Jason, man. There's a lot of different. You got storefront churches, You got big institutional churches, you got the prosperity gospel types. There's a lot of different stuff there.
Well,
when I was in Savannah, Georgia, I went to a where did Jewish people go to church? Synagogue. It was amazing. I'd never been to one. I'd never been to one before.
Oh man, I just remember like synagogue was a place my parents forced me to go like once or twice a year when I was a kid, and I thought it was so boring.
They gave us free food. They knew I'm a touring musician, so I was on tour.
You gotta eat.
And they were the rabbi was super, super cool and gave us so much food, and was actually really nice. But I'd never been to I was afraid they weren't going to let me in. I thought there was like super rules to it. They're like, no, I just got to wear the hat.
We have a synagogue here not in Springfield. They have it in Rogersville, just outside of Springfield, and they have a woman rabbi, right? And the guy who teaches them Hebrew basically teaches them Hebrew through playing Dungeons and Dragons, and Hebrew is elf. So if they want to speak to elves, they have to be able to use Hebrew. So apparently, it really motivates the kids to learn Hebrew. It's like they have a party. They have like a I don't know what you call them like a church fete where they do all the Jewish foods. They have like the table like donate to the IDF or whatever, but the most stuff is pretty nice.
Listen, Jamie,
I found my article.
I'm not saying that you guys need to get baptized and learn Negro spirituals to be able to get membership in DSA. That's not the point. That's not the point I'm trying to convey to you. What I'm saying is that on materialist grounds, churches have working class people. You can find some way to interface with these spaces on materialist issues that need to be addressed in these churches, and there are still some young people in these churches, and find ways to get people who might be sympathetic.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I'll run it up the chain. See what people say.
Do you want a fun question?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Poor
I thought this was a
She had
fucking
no
host
idea.
game.
We're-
I
Yeah,
talk
hey, and
about
I'm so- if-
something that I like sort of
We're
have
all-
an opinion on, but not all the way. God.
I hope you don't think we're picking
very
on you.
serious. We
Hope you don't think we're
went
picking on
pretty
you.
hard with Jamie. It was
First
like,
of all, we're asking you these questions because we respect you. I actually respect your thoughts and opinions, and we
Appreciate
like
it.
your input.
Well, I think this opinion needs a little more time in the oven, and then we can talk about it some more.
But I hope you
Well,
don't think we're picking on you, and I
no,
apologize if you feel that way.
we showed no mercy to Jamie today. It was like straight in with the hardcore questions, no messing about.
She
No.
didn't get
I-
Finkelstein.
I could use a little dessert, I will say.
Okay, here's a good one. Okay, you are a self-described goth. What are goths, and what is going on in goth culture today? Are goths nihilists?
Oh my God. I mean, some goths are nihilists. Some goths are just, romantics
you
with a
feel
lot of
identified?
feelings. I'm a bit of a goth. It's like partly a joke, but partly it's real. I've always been into, for whatever reason, goth music and culture, parties, fashion. I don't know. Maybe it's because like people like to fuck with me, and it makes people fuck with me a little less if I try to look a little scary and intimidating.
Someone
What's the
asked if
difference
Jason
between an
James likes
emo and a
similar
goth?
music.
Huh? Wait. I need to finish answering the first question first, which is are goths nihilists? Actually, it's funny. Like I went over this at the beginning of COVID when there was a dumb article in like the Daily Mail or like one of those British tabloids or some shit like that. And this person, she was like a culture wars lady. Actually, no, this was not a culture wars lady. This was just some random dumbass reporter. So she like interviewed some goths about the pandemic, and she's like, so like all this death and disease, like you must be really loving this, huh? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we don't want people to die. I'm a goth because I'm a romantic, and death, thinking about death makes life more meaningful, but we're very much into life as well and like being alive and shit. So goths are normal people. Literally show me a normal person, right? Nobody's
Here's
normal.
my question for you, Jamie. Is Christian Death a goth band?
I'm gonna go with yeah. I realize this is like controversial. I've had this this battle with Matt Binder. He would like bully me on the Majority
On the
Report.
Christian Death question?
And no, he's a punk, and he would be like, "Oh, punks are cooler than goths, and they're totally different things." Like, no, like goth music came out of post-punk. You see how it has punk in the name? Like, there's plenty of crossover between these two genres. But yeah, I think Christian Death is I'd call him pretty goth.
I did a show with a group called the March Violets that kind of come out of that first wave of post-punk. If you remember them from the late 70s, early 80s. And I actually asked them about that, and they're like, dude, we didn't even have a name for this shit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess technically Christian Death is death rock,
Sure.
but like goths like it. So like there was a while back I had a conversation with somebody who was like really took herself way too seriously. She was just one of those self-serious goths who was like, no, you shouldn't call people goths who are there's like goths, there's post-punks, there's death rock, what did she say? She said it's like calling Dominicans black. And I was like,
Whoa.
wow, there's a lot to
going
unpack here.
I didn't know it was that serious.
People's subcultural affiliations, which are entirely voluntary, maybe not something you want to compare to racialization, but maybe that's just me.
C Money Burns says if they use reverb, it's goth, and I agree with that statement wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Oh, reverb, super goth.
If you use reverb, you're good. That's it. And also, do you since we're going down the goth rabbit hole, and I'll stop after this. What is your take on Cholo Goth?
I think it's
Can we
pretty
define
cool.
these terms, please?
I mean, we're referring to the crossover of like Mexican Cholo culture and Gothic culture, right?
Where in Southern California, to me, those things aren't a big deal. It just is.
I mean, Mexico. I've been to
And that's where those
Mexico a
dudes are
bunch
from.
of times, and there are a lot of fucking goths there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
Big Morrissey fans.
Like
know
I
a lot of
really,
them. Yeah.
I really feel like I found my people a little bit when I went to see some shows in Mexico City, because they really do have like there's a real culture more
There is.
so than in New York of like dark, heavy music, like post-punk, shoegaze, like dark psychedelic, all my favorite shit. And for a few years in a row, I would go to Festival Normal, which had really amazing lineups in Mexico City. Also, I love to go to the club. It's called El Real Under.
Oh,
short
in
for-
Mexico City?
Yeah,
have you
short
been
for
to
underground.
El Chopo, the big ass
I
flea
have
market?
not been to El Chopo, the punk and goth flea market, but I
That's
want to
the
go
dopest spot in
next
the
time I'm
world.
there. I mean,
The-
watch out, because there's gonna be some Nazi shit. I'm not sure what's up with that.
I didn't see.
but-
I was there. 2016. I didn't see Nazi shit, but I definitely got some sick ass Christian Death shirts that I wouldn't have been able to get for like.
Hell
nobody-
yeah.
Everybody's like, "What are they
Look
talking
up
about?"
Urban Dictionary right now.
Anybody here into like R&B, the OJ, the Earth, Wind, and Fire?
We were talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire. They could. What about emos? What's your feelings on emos?
Oh man, emos are like the Yazidis of Mexico, man. There's just a persecuted minority. They get beat up by everyone.
Everyone beats up
It's really
emo?
mean. Like
They
I
beat up-
saw there was like there was a Vice documentary about like
About emos getting
hate
beat up?
crimes against emos in Mexico.
Why do people beat up on emos?
Because they whine and they had white belts. And they,
Yeah, I mean I get it, but you should still be nice to them.
I
there
hear
was 2
Zoom
clubs in
Girl-
Sacramento, California. If Matt's a hardcore guy, Matt Bender, there were these 2 clubs in Sacramento, California, and one was like a hardcore, like bro hardcore club, and the other was like across the street, and it was like an emo hardcore club, and they would fight all the time. And we kind of thought it was a little bit hilarious.
That is so weird.
It's the
You
same
live in
music,
a-
it's just different haircuts.
You live in a society where everyone's encouraged to like join a tribe or gang in order to protect themselves and have like a little family. And I think that might be what's going on with these various subcultural rumbles.
Are emos considered a gang in Mexico? Not kidding. I don't know if there's an emo gang in Mexico.
Oh,
I
man.
would be very frightened of it.
I actually really liked this episode of it's like a fashion show. I forget what it's called, but it's on the Vice. I don't even know if the Vice channel still exists, but they did like all the different subcultural tribes in Mexico City, and it was pretty cool. They kind of gave short shrift to the goths though, or the darketos as they're called.
I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing in Mexico City because I played music that they would have considered gothy, but it was a little heavier, a lot heavier than that, but still.
Oh hell
had a
yeah!
lot of elements of that.
Oh,
kind of
what was
still.
your band?
It's a French name, Le Fin Absolute du Monde, the absolute
End of the world.
That sounds pretty goth
so
to
we
me.
were called. They called it something like metal goth or shit like that, but it wasn't the intention. It's just there was a female fronted group.
Oh man, how much do you miss live music?
Well, the lack of live music is the reason why we're talking. Because I toured up until the world ended.
Oh man, yeah, everyone has to be like a podcaster now with Patreon. It's terrible.
No, everybody thought I was stupid when I said I was going to do this. They're like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would you do that?"
I mean, it's not the worst idea. Even people in like really quite famous bands are having to do shit like that to make ends meet.
Well, look, the truth about a lot of them cats is they definitely didn't make as much money. Certain prices started to go up like crazy for overseas touring, and that really hurt people. And people were doing things already before Corona that they didn't want to do. Meet and greets. I would say 90%, 99% of the groups that I know, and even people that I had to work with, hated meet and greets. And meet and greets are you just have to do them now. There's no way around it.
Oy. Well, I know the frontman of a number of successful indie bands, Dan Beckner. I met him through because I just noticed that he was a fan of my podcast, and he has put out some really good albums, like really successful albums, well reviewed on Pitchfork, and now he's got like 2 podcasts now. They're really good though. Everyone should check them out.
I'm not get it any way you can get it. It's interesting to see how long these people last at it though, because it's like, do you remember when David Lee Roth took over Howard Stern? I mean, I'm not a fan of Howard Stern, but I remember that shift because David Lee Roth's whole thing is I'm a musician and I have these crazy stories of coke-filled nights and all this money and doing crazy shit with groupies, but that shit can't sustain a show for long periods of time, and people got tired of it like hella quick. And ultimately, these guys have the same show over and over.
It takes a special kind of diseased mind to want to do this, permanently.
You can say that again. Pascal wants to know what Jamie thinks about Jodeci.
I didn't say someone. That's not my question.
That was almost as uncomfortable as a church question.
I can't say I know that much about that kind of music. I'm sorry.
You didn't even listen to Jodeci growing up?
You ain't listen to no black music, girl. God, that's why y'all got no shitty.
I'm from the suburbs. I shopped at Hot Topic.
What suburbs of where? Where did you grow up?
Connecticut.
Oh, Jesus, God.
Yeah, I'm from West Hartford.
You're from West Hartford? There's lots of black people in Hartford.
West Hartford is a rich white suburb of Hartford.
Oh, you're one of those people. Oh.
Sorry. I try to check my privilege like every chance I get so people don't think I'm like trying to hide it somehow. So I guess I just did it again.
What? Oh, sorry. My son is about to he's in trouble.
But like as an adult, I've gained more of an appreciation for hip hop, especially. I like horrorcore and weird shit too. Like Mickey Blanco, the rapper, like her a lot. What else? I don't know. I don't even listen to music anymore. I just listen to podcasts now. My brain is broken.
Go listen to some music.
Which podcast do you recommend to us then? What's a good podcast?
I mean, my favorite podcast that I listen to on the regs is the Trailbilly Workers Party. And they're kind of our sister pod in addition to Pod Damn America, which I also listen to sometimes.
I was on a show with the guy who does Pod Damn America.
Oh, Jake
Foster. He was very cool.
Jake Flores. Yeah, I like to joke that he stole my husband from me because Sean lives with him now.
Oh, word.
That sounds hot.
Yeah, it's a steamy leftist podcaster love triangle.
What about vampires, Jamie? What are your feelings on vampires?
What about them? I have a side project called Vampire Castle. I don't know if you're aware of it. Me and my friend Leslie Lee III, who does a really good podcast called Struggle Session. Yeah. We do a little side project where we talk about mostly vampire movies, and it's called The Vampire Castle, which is like a little bit of a troll on, like the anti-woke left who like loves that essay and has just abused the corpse of Mark Fisher for many years now. But no, it's actually just about vampires. It's not about SJWs or whatever.
Is Blade a vampire movie?
Oh, yeah. We've done one on Blade, actually.
Have you seen what they do in the shadows?
Oh, yeah, we've done. You guys got to listen. You guys got to listen to me and Leslie's little side project. That's how we're both going to leave our main podcast behind. If you look at the relative.
Have you seen Vampire in Brooklyn?
I have not. But is it something I should see?
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably is something.
Yeah. It's got Eddie Murphy in it.
Oh shit! We should do it. Yeah, Leslie especially likes vampire movies with black representation.
Blackula, man. You never saw her of Blackula?
Ganja and
I
Hess.
have seen Blackula. Yeah.
Have you seen Ganja and Hess?
Mm-mm.
Check
Wait,
that. Watch Ganja and Hess and let me know what you thought about.
Okay.
It's a real
I wanna know,
artsy
though,
vampire film.
Do you prefer What They Do in the Shadows, the movie, or the TV series?
Oh man, I think the TV series is funnier.
Yeah, the woman vampire is a good addition to the.
She's fucking hilarious. She might be the funniest. I know they're all really funny. I think the pacing of it maybe works better in a TV show than a movie because the movie's like, all right, we get the joke. It's still the same joke. It's been 2 hours. Like
the TV series really nails it. I think. I always think Matt Berry, who plays Laszlo, is funny. I always think he's just and the guy who plays Nando, what's his name? Nando the Relentless or something. Do you remember what's his name? He has a joke in it, which is in Persian, because when he brings back his ghost is speaking in Persian, and the reason he's calling his horse John is because his horse is actually called Jahan, which means universe, but he's forgotten how to speak Persian. And my wife, who speaks Persian, thought that was really, really funny because the actor is a Persian actor. So it's a really good show. I really enjoyed it. I like the energy vampire guy. I think he's.
Oh my god, so funny.
That guy when he becomes the boss and can bore everybody to death.
Oh my god. It's really good. Yeah, Leslie and I actually did an episode based around vampire movies that take place in the workplace. So that kind of ties into that theme a little bit.
Did you meet Leslie on the Katie Halber show?
No, how did I meet Leslie? That's a good question. We just I don't know. I asked him to come on my podcast and we became friends. That's how podcasters make friends with each other. And I've always liked Struggle Session. Definitely the best podcast about movies and pop culture going out there with a strong leftist perspective. Yeah, we just started doing stuff together. I don't ever want to do a movie episode without Leslie, honestly, because Sean and Andy and I always say our harebrained takes on what we think the movie's about, and then Leslie tells us what it's actually about, and it's a good dynamic.
Vampires are not bourgeois as fuck. Vampires are aristocratic, right?
They are, yeah.
And if you play Vampire the Masquerade, you know that all the different clans of vampires have different social classes. That's just big facts. I don't know if you played Vampire the Masquerade, Jamie, but I can imagine you playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah. Okay. I was in a mixed campaign. This is so fucking nerdy.
Okay, what clan did you play?
You guys are gonna
cool
understand why I got bullied as a child. All right. I was actually in a mixed campaign, so I was a changeling. And there were other characters that were vampires. I don't know. I was just at the bottom of the pecking order, even in the group of theater losers. I don't know.
Did they make you play a changeling? Did you choose to play?
Honestly, I don't remember, but probably.
That's so sad. So you played Vampire the Masquerade, but didn't get to play a vampire.
Yeah.
That's kind of mean to a goth girl.
That's kind of mean to a goth, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I think you would make a good... maybe a Bruja or a Toreador. I don't know. I'm a bit of an expert on vampire. I'm a role play guy. Jason played in my role play game.
I did.
On Zero Books. It was good fun.
I played a role playing game online. Take that.
This is all too weird for me.
So everybody who's accusing us leftists of being LARPers, basically, you're right. No, I never did the live action role playing. That's too nerdy.
That's too weird. There's a documentary about it, which it's just it's basically a propaganda documentary for the reboot of Vampire the Masquerade that they were doing. And it's it has all these live action roleplay people who are super serious, but they only ever film the hot ones. They never film the normal people who are at the vampire. Because there's some weird shit that goes on that Vampire the Masquerade live action
All right, I got to stop the vampire talk right now because my son is getting his hair washed, and it is like the end of the
Aw.
world for him right now. So I'm gonna go relieve the wonderfully gorgeous woman in there that is dealing with a screaming 2-year-old.
Good
Can you hear
man.
that?
Oh yeah.
Can you really?
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, she's just washing his hair. Like that's all it is.
Someone like really wants to know if I have a mullet.
There's a lot of questions, so you have to answer the
What's
mullet
with the
question.
mullet talk? What's that about? Why would you?
I
think
mean,
that?
You can't tell what her hair looks like.
The answer is yes, I do have a mullet, but
Why,
it
is that a
doesn't
wig?
always. No, it's my hair. But it doesn't always look that
That fool said,
mullety.
is that a weave?
It's no, it's just my hair growing out of my head. It doesn't always look that mullety because I have my headphones on and it kind of mashes it down a little bit. And also I need to like put stuff in my hair and like blow dry it and stuff to make it look like a little bit poofier because generally it's just kind of greasy and flat. So, but yes, I do have a mullet.
That's cool. It's mullet.
Mullet to me. The mullet's when you have it all shaved on the side. It's like a.
Oh, she's-
It's a soft shag kind of girl kind of mullet. It's a shullet, if you will. But no, I got the layers. Trust me. If you were in the room with me, you would see that I have a mullet.
Well, we hope you. So have you? We really hope you enjoyed joining us here at This Is Revolution, and we hope that you will come back again one of these days to talk about church and going to church and how your adventures in the Black Church in Brooklyn went.
Oh my God. I might not be, but then again, maybe I would be the person to do that because I like talking. I like talking to people. Like it doesn't come naturally to me, but I feel like I've gotten better at it as I've, done some organizing. So maybe I will be the person to form that coalition. Who knows?
Did you enjoy this episode, Jamie?
Oh yeah, it was good. Like you actually asked me some questions that I really don't have a very good answer to, but that's all right. Like that's how we evolve, right?
Yeah, and I would.
How would you rate our podcast based on your
Pascal, we can't ask that.
podcasting experience? Oh, I'd like to hear her thoughts.
Sure. 2 thumbs up and 1 mullet up. How about that?
Excellent.
2 thumbs up. Excellent. Well, I don't know what's happening with Jason. Has he been like he's doing social reproduction right now? So
I think his baby mama's beating him up or something.
Yeah, Jason's son, Phoenix, often comes on to the podcast because he likes it. He likes coming and saying hi to Pascal, and he likes hanging out. The only issue is we can't turn the podcast off without Jason.
Oh
So
no!
Jason is getting yelled at by his the mother of his child. He's in trouble. He's been playing because he's been on all podcasts too late.
He's past his podcast curfew.
He's past his curfew.
It is a bit late. Well, maybe someday I too will have a kid to make me log off. Inshallah.
It's good fun. It is good fun.
Do you plan to be doing podcasting long term, or is this just a temporary thing?
I don't know what I'm doing from day to day, man. Like I just wanted to be a writer, and that's what I did for a while. And then kind of the money went away, and then I got offered a job at the Majority Report. And then I started a podcast. But I would like to go back to writing at some point in time. I've got this book proposal that I need to, dust off.
Are you going to be sending it to Zero Books?
I don't know if it's really Zero Books material, but maybe if they want to publish a memoir.
Well, that's something we can cross with Doug Lane.
Well, maybe we should. Maybe we should all talk. But
All
yeah,
right.
I don't fucking know. I just have a series of I'll do a job and then, some shit'll happen and I'm like, "Oh shit, guess I got to find something else to do." And it's just been like that for my entire life. And, I'm lucky not everyone has the resources, shall I say.
It's the millennial life, downwardly mobile bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming on, and we really appreciate you. You know, it's nice to hear you have some to speak for an extended period without somebody stopping you speaking after
Thank you.
3 minutes, which like when you speak for an extended period, it's like way better.
Oh my God, thank you. That's nice to hear because, you know, I got some self-esteem issues sometimes. So it was really nice to talk with all you guys about political economy, about organizing, about automation, about church, and about vampires.
Well, we hope to have you on again. And I think Jason is going to do the signing off because he's in so much trouble. And
I'm really scared right now. Like, you don't have any idea.
we can't stay on the podcast forever just because you're scared. Pascal needs a sandwich. Jamie needs to go to bed.
Yeah, I gotta put my cats to bed.
Like, you guys have no idea. It's all bad right now. It's all bad for me. Say a prayer, Jamie. Say a
I
God.
will.
Wow.
We'll
All
say
right. I don't know if it's gonna help, but
It's more of a spell.
I
We need to have
mean, same diff.
All right. Well, thank you guys. This was a fun chat. This was a really fun show, and